So it's there, so it makes it easier?
Well, the saw makes it easier. Those are okay.
The butcher that day he was going through bones like nothing. He did have that new saw. You know that? Yeah.
Alright. I don't know why this was left on here the way it is. Maybe it's part of the jowl, but I'm going to take this off just like I would as if it were the head right across the section of the neck there. That looks like some nice marbled meat that'll make some nice cured tasting pork roast. Alright. So, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go inside the cavity. So we have the spinal cord here. And right inside the spinal cord in this section right here is the tenderloin. So we're going to remove that tenderloin. I'm going to remove this stuff along here just to expose the end of these ribs. And then we'll get into breaking this thing down into triangle parts. So these are just what we call feather bones. So basically if you think of a T-bone, this would be the T of the T-bone. On the back side of this animal is the loin or the New York strip. The front side is the fillet part of the T-bone here. So one of the key things to butchery is you always want to feel the bones. So that sound you want to hear all the time when you're butchering. So we go right up to the edge of the rib cage here, and then I'm going to turn using just the tip of my knife. Always when you're butchering, you want to use just the tip of your knife so you can see what you're cutting into and make sure that that's what you want to be cutting into. So that's our pork tenderloin. Clean that up a little bit later. Where are the hotel pans that I had? Stacked it to the hotel pan. Next thing we're going to do is just take this little piece off here. It's a pretty small piece of meat on the pig. This is actually, I believe it's strip steak. The equivalent of skirt steak. It's a fairly small, insignificant piece, so this is going to go as trim. So this is my leg here that I'm going to make a ham out of. So I'm going to take that off first. Then we'll focus on this section here, which is kind of the prime piece of the pig here. It has the pork loin and then the pork rack or the pork chop rack chops here. So this would be the equivalent of the prime rib. This would be the equivalent of the New York strip if this were beef cattle. So I'm going to go right to the first lumbar vertebrae, which is the first joint between where it turns down the back of the animal and where it straightens up into the spinal cord. I'm going to cut right through that. So what I'm catching there is the very edge of the shoulder blade, not the shoulder blade, the very edge of the H-bone, pelvic bone. This is actually a chef's knife that some knife sharpener ruined and turned into a really badass boning knife.
So much.
So one of the more difficult bones to remove on any animal is the H-bone. I recently had the opportunity to do both a fore and hind quarter of a beef cattle, and it took a long time to get this bone out of here, and it was about this big. It was giant. So you've got a bone that is basically attaches to the ball joint, and then is the whole pelvic girdle on half the animal. So it's got a big chunk of meat right here in the middle, which I want to capture. I'm not sure why I'm reaching across the table. Right here is where the ball joint attaches to this bone. There's a big tendon right there that holds it together, which I just cut. Everybody see that? So the other part of butchering is to utilize, most of big heavy-duty butchering like this is done when meat is hanging. And the idea is that you can use gravity at the same time to help you identify separation of muscles. So I'm pulling on this very firmly right now to sort of help facilitate that process. Once you expose one end of this, then you can just follow it back. Trying to leave this big chunk of meat that was right in the middle of this bone in here. So, I'm going to leave the other part of this in here intact for a bone-in ham. I'm going to take, this is sort of a little bit of the sirloin that's left down here. So this will be the end of a New York strip right down here. I'm going to take this chunk right here off, and that's going to become sausage meat.